Thank you to His Excellency Wamkele Mene for giving us practical examples of how the African continent has the potential to compete effectively as some of our BRICS counterparts, China and India, through the easing of trade barriers and also directing our eyes forward to the Pan-African payment system and the potential that you've quoted the World Bank as saying by 2035, if the African Continental Free Trade Area is implemented properly, 100 million people could be lifted out of poverty, with the biggest beneficiaries being women and youth, and also warning that if we miss this opportunity, we may not have another one. Let's watch some more videos before we go into our next panel.
In a country where diversity is a blueprint, where democracy affords its people the freedom of expression, where the people are guided by the spirit of Ubuntu and humanity is at the core of our ethos, our spirit of determination unleashes our true potential. We are people with a distinctive charm, people with big hearts. We come from a people of integrity, dignity, and great humility. We rise above every situation and limitation, for we are resilient. It's in the way we talk, the way we greet, the way we love, and the way we care. We celebrate each other. We are givers who open our hearts when the need arises, always willing to offer a helping hand to us and the world. From the beautiful skyscrapers of our cities to the Karoo farms, our distinctive mountains and rivers, there are a number of factors that define our nation brand. Through its people, its culture and heritage, we are proud of our diverse cultures, the rich legacy of our forefathers that has left the anchor of our tomorrow. We are innovators, game changers. We dance in triumph as our feet vibrate on the African soil, where our hearts beat as one. A powerful vehicle to carry any brand message is through its people. At the heart of our nation brand is a simple yet very powerful movement that seeks to unite its people towards encouraging everyone to play their part in advancing South Africa's reputation and image. We inspire, we empower, and we celebrate active citizenship. We lift the spirit of our nation. We contribute to positive change. We are a nation of people who care deeply for one another, and our desired outcome is to create an active society that contributes to a prosperous economy. Oh, what a beautiful nation we are. We are South Africa.
All right, so we've heard from representatives from the business community, tourism, sports, health, and culture. They've spoken, we've reflected, we've spoken about rebuilding, and now there's a mandate that's been given to government. So let's hear from the people who have the marching orders from citizens, find out how the discussions that we've had today are reflected in the country's economic recovery plan, what else is to be done, and hopefully get some reassurance. We're almost at the end of our discussion and brand forum for today. Please remember, if you're watching us online and you want to pose your questions to the panelists, which is going to be quite brief, for this instance, you can do that using the hashtag NBF21. Leanne, over to you.
Very much. Thanks very much, Nzinga. So I get the privilege of wrapping things up today, and I know that today has, I must say, it's been, for the amount of time that I've been here and watching, it's been absolutely inspiring to see what it is that needs to be done, and that people have got a renewed love for this country and a renewed, I suppose, what's the word I'm looking for? I can't even think of the word, but it's this renewed vigor to restart South Africa, because it feels like we've been on pause for quite some time, but it's now time to open up for business again. It really is. And it requires a lot of hard work. It requires a lot of passion, and it requires a lot of buy-in from what I've realized, not only government, but the private sector as well. This is a big partnership where we all need to come together and work very, very hard. So let me introduce you to my panelists that have been here since this morning. They've been listening, they've been watching, they've been hearing, and I know vigorously taking notes as well, because I can see you brought your notepad up with you. So it is important that we hear from the representatives that we do have with us today. So first up, an old friend, Clayson, Monyela, who is the Deputy Director General at International Relations, DIRCO. So nice to see you. It really, really is. I know that we usually get together when it's the time to celebrate amazing South Africans and the work that we're doing, but it's all been paused. So I'm hoping that that unpause button is coming soon and we can start celebrating again. So Clayson, good to have you here with us as well. Mr. Vusithemba Ndima, he's the Deputy Director General of Heritage Promotion and Preservation at the Department of Arts and Culture. So good to have you. An important person to have on this panel because, yeah, arts and culture, we need to speak about that. And then finally, Mr. Yunus Hussein, who is the Head of Invest South Africa at the Department of Trade, Industry and Competition. Yunus, thank you. Good to have you as well. Gentlemen, you've been sitting, you've been listening. Let me begin with you here, Yunus, that you're sitting right next to me. What has stood out for you today? What is those points that have really, really been etched into your mind?
Thanks, Leanne. I think that it's been a great session in that you had both the positives and the negatives. But there are a couple of things that stand out. I think throughout the day, many suggestions made. But one of the things, for example, there are economic reforms that we are implementing in the country, but albeit it's at a slow pace, and we have to pick up pace in South Africa's economic reforms in order to be the cost of doing business destination, in order to be an investment attraction. But some of the reforms, I think we need to be aware that the Economic Reconstruction and Recovery Program was, as was alluded to earlier by many panelists, a great public-private as well as partnership with labor. So in terms of developing South Africa's plan for a long-term growth trajectory. And in terms of the plan, it's just about a year old. It's good to take stock on some of the quick wins and what can be done, what can be accelerated, how can we do it, by when can we do it, what's our time frame. For example, in the entire day's discussion today, many things were said about to kickstart, for example, tourism and hospitality, but no one said that SAA is already taken up in the skies. So it's happening. So I mean, you need 3 cheers for that. It has happened.
Yeah.
You know. No one said that in the past 2 years, for example, on the ease of doing business, we made it today that a domestic company can register a company within 1 day, within 30 minutes. So you can get your company registration, your ZAR DNA number, your BE certificate, your UIF certificate, your compensation certificate. You can connect to 6 banks in South Africa instantly. So these are some of the reforms that has happened and are being implemented. So I think what we need to look at is South Africa has a compelling investment case. It surely can do better. It's performing below its potential. What do we need in terms of this public-private partnership that we talked about, as equally labor and civil society, to accelerate, to get beyond the 1.23%. We can't play in that. In order to grow this economy inclusively, and then this entire system of how we can inclusively grow South Africa's brand. Yeah. But it first comes in doing, I would say, going back to the basics, doing the things right, and I think what needs to happen in South Africa is that we always say this: cut the red tape, roll out the red carpet.
Yes.
So yes. You have to do it. You have to instill in the civil service, where I actually come from, an ethos of accountability, an ethos of customer service, ethos of turnaround time. If you do those 3 things, we're on a successful path towards making that intrinsic South Africa's brand. so that we can go out and say, I think Simon said this, that forget the past, talk about what you're going to do, so that when we talk about what we're going to do, we're actually going to do it in that time frame. And that will bring the success that we're looking for in terms of the growth trajectory, both domestically as well as for foreign direct investment.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Eunice, you've raised some very, very important issues. And there are a couple that I want to bring up with you and quiz you, because while I was sitting here, some of the things that I was Googling was, I just wanted to get a sense of what's happening out there and how the world perceives us. And the one thing that I did Google was, what is the most difficult things or points that are there to do business in South Africa, and what are they? I've got them. I'll let you know. and these are things we need to speak about and get over them. We do need to look at the positives, but we need to very critically look at the negatives that we have. This is a big one, heritage. I did it also, what Simon said about not looking back and always looking forward, and people want to see us looking forward, and unless you're a historian, you worry about where we've come from. Yes, I agree, and no, I don't agree, because we can never forget where we've come from, ever. And we can never forget who we intrinsically are. And the one thing I love about South Africa is its diversity, is the fact that we are so different, is the fact that our heritage is so rich, is the fact that we have so many cultures living under one flag, which is something to buy into and something to be very, very proud of, that we need to do more in this. Now, arts and culture is one of those departments that really needs to work harder, in my opinion. And I'm sorry for saying that, but I feel we need to buy into and tap into what we have, because we have so much here that we need to use. So what did you hear from today that stood out for you, that you feel as a department that you can go forward and actually work on and say, this is what we're doing?
Thank you. Thank you very much. Maybe just it's important that whatever came out today cannot be discussed outside the context of the pandemic, COVID-19 pandemic. That's what first and foremost I noticed, that the discussions that we've heard today could not just move away from that, but of course also what the pandemic did to our society, some of the fault lines that came out as a result of the pandemic. I am from the sport, arts and culture, and adversely affected by the pandemic. Museums shutting down, theaters are shutting down, no events that were taking place for musicians. If in fact, the whole issue of enjoying your heritage, it came to a stop. But of course, one just noted some of the points that were coming out to say, we need not lament about that, because for any adversity, you can learn something out of it. For instance, if you look at the heritage sector, already they are now looking at digital technologies, ensuring that whatever is in our holdings, in our museums, it's actually being made accessible through digital means, which I think that it's one step forward in terms of progress. But also, you know what happened was the issue of the unrest that just erupted. Yeah. We are responsible for social cohesion in the department. And sometimes, quite often, people think that it's just our responsibility alone. And yet, that is the responsibility of everyone. If you are a South African, if you are in the private sector, you are in non-governmental organizations or in government, it's our business. The fact that within a very short space of time, we lost 50 billions of rands out of the unrest, that was an indication of the fault lines within the society. It begins to say we cannot work alone as government, but we also need the private sector. It needs to take keen interest in ensuring that there is a stability in the country. It should take a keen interest in ensuring that there's the reduction of unemployment, the inequalities within our society. Poverty is actually being reduced. So those are the things that I picked up, as the Department of Sport, Arts and Culture, we really need to just look for new partners in our attempt to ensure that we do facilitate and have a cohesive society in South Africa.
And take issues. I mean, I was hearing about people speaking about women's sports. Take these things seriously. Take our stars seriously. And yes, a lot of things did happen during COVID, but a lot of these things existed before COVID came. And this is the reality, is that a lot of artists feel that they are being neglected, that they are not being looked after, and that you've got absolute heroes that have dedicated their lives to the arts in South Africa, and famous musicians that have died paupers. And that is worrying. These are the people that keep our legacy alive, through people all over the world playing their music, revering their arts, and yet when they're here, they're not looked after while they're alive. So these are things I hope that you heard as well, because I heard that. So I'm hoping that you take that back, and we've got to do something about this. We really do.
Thank you very much. I think that it's a very good point that you are making, but also just to indicate that as the department, I don't know whether you know of the program which is called Living Legends, which is also a program that is designed to take care of artists, more particularly those artists who are above 70, who can no longer do music, for instance, but they can still impart the skills to the younger generations. So those are the kinds of programs that government, our department, is busy with, and it has shown a great deal of success in terms of ensuring that there is that transmission of knowledge, because for the sector to sustain itself, there should be learnings that happen, from those who have been at the forefront of the industry, handing over the baton to the younger ones, and even indicating to them the kind of challenges that are there in the industry, because, the industry that we are in, you might want to say it's glamorous, but only when things are still fine. Mm-hmm. When things turn around, it becomes something else. Yeah. And that kind of information, that arsenal of information that resides within the living legends, we are making it a point that we tap into that. But I do take the point that we still can do more as a department. And one thing that was said by my colleague, Dr. Sithole, as he was part of the panel here, one of the things that we were caught flat-footed on when the outbreak or the pandemic broke out was the issue of who is an artist, the database. Yeah. And that's one of the things that we're now working towards, because we want to ensure that we do have a database of who the artist is, who the athlete is, so that if there is any emergency, we are able to know with speed, and there is rapid response. And these are the things that we have learned, and we are working on them to try and improve the situation.
I have to relay a story to you. So a bit earlier, I went to the ladies, and I was a little bit too much information, I know, but I am going somewhere with a story. I was there, and as I'm washing my hands, the lady who works in the bathrooms came through, and she was singing a song, just under her breath, and she was just singing, hallelujah, la 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 la, whatever, whatever, hallelujah, so happy, filling up the towels, filling up the soap, and I just stood there and I said, this is music to my ears in every sense of the word. I think the fact that she's working again, the fact that she is out and about doing a job and having meaning in her life is just so amazing. And I'm not just guessing this, because I work with a lot of people that have not had the opportunity to do a single thing in what's going on for 2 years now, and where are they earning money? Because that's the big question. So yeah, it's a moment that's going to stick with me for a very, very long time, to see how happy she was. Clayson, you've also been here, and you've been here from very, very early, listening to some of the things when we talk about international relations, and we talk about the ease of doing business in South Africa, and that red tape, roll out the red carpet, not the red tape. So what have you heard? What has stood out for you that you think we are addressing now from your department's perspective?
Well, thank you very much for the opportunity. Can I just start by saying how good it is to see the Secretary General of the African Continental Free Trade Area and say he's a South African.
Amazing.
It's almost
and a young South African,
it's
Clayson,
almost a better feeling than the one I get each time Kaizer Chiefs wins, which is a bit of it's a bit of a rare occurrence these days. South African diplomats will tell you that it wasn't easy to get him to that position. And the fact that he's there, I think goes a long way in enhancing the nation brand. So what I heard today was it's more about what we do and not necessarily about what we say that enhances the brand of our country. And from the space where I work, there's a lot of work that we do on the continent and in other regions of the world, which is tangible. And if I was listening to Simon, the humanitarian interventions that we make, for example, when there is a food security crisis in South Sudan and South Africa donates food aid to the tune of 100 million, or in Zimbabwe, or we intervene in Sri Lanka, or we facilitate resolution of a political crisis through mediation in other countries. These are the sort of things that we need to do more of because they enhance the nation brand of this country. But also from the previous discussion that just concluded, I heard that as diplomats, we have to do more. In addition to efforts to boost intra-African trade, we need to give attention to the movement of people on the African continent. Make it easier for Africans to cross the border into one another's countries, as opposed to the current scenario. This idea that before I travel to another African country, I have first to go to Europe and connect from Europe and come back to the continent, when in fact my destination is on the continent. We need to do away with such, and you do that through interventions that build and give attention to infrastructure, as Wamkele was saying. So these are matters that are on our to-do list. We are working on this. There is an issue, though, with regards to the movement of people on the African continent, and it's not a unique challenge to South Africa, because South Africa is a receiving country on issues of international migration. Now, I wrote a piece, in fact, an opinion piece, which was published by one of the local publications, where I was addressing the responsibilities attached to sending countries, because there are countries where, if you are to, bump into a migrant, they're likely from a particular country. Then there are countries which serve as transit countries. People go through these countries, and they open a safe passage for them to proceed and come to countries like South Africa. We don't have the time now for me to unpack the challenges attached to that, because it has an impact on our infrastructure, the services that we offer as government, for example, the free medical health program that we have. But these are matters that we had, and they are being attended to as part of enhancing the brand of our country, because we all believe in South Africa like I believe in Kaizer Chiefs.
This is unfair. This is really unfair. Okay.
And you're my enemy.
I love it. All right, there you go. It's okay. We'll forgive you just for now. So I promised you that I would read you some of the things, and it's not only at you, Eunice, because everybody here. These are the things that have come up, which I think are important, and this is what we need to focus on when you sort of look at As I mentioned, I was just looking, as Monyela was speaking, I was looking at some of the difficulties of doing business, not only on the African continent, but with South Africa in particular. And these are the things that jumped out at me. And this is from the World Economic Forum and the Global Risk Report. They say, firstly, economic growth, too low. The unemployment levels, scary. And that was the number one thing that jumped up. And then number two, and this is something we need to speak about, and I'm not sure if it has been spoken about during the very first panel. It was a bit early for me, unfortunately. I was still in editorial meetings and everything. But if this hasn't been brought up, we need to speak about it. The deteriorating infrastructure in this country. It is scaring investors and businesses away. And this is a big thing. We need to speak about this. Electricity and water. This is a big problem when we talk about that, the critical infrastructure that's failing us. Social instability. I think DDG, you mentioned it, what we saw happening in the country and being streamed all over the world, but I'm not worried about what the world saw. I'm worried about what I saw in my own country that took us all by surprise, because I didn't see it coming, and I'm not sure many people did. And we still need to see accountability, another problem that comes up. Corruption. Major problem. The idea that corruption is never punished in this country is something that people look at and worry about. Unmanageable inflation, another problem that people look at. Increases in energy prices that just don't stop, and yet we're not getting the product. And then crime. Crime is a problem, and I know that. We all know this, but it's something that needs to be addressed. Another thing that came up was restrictive labor regulations, which scares companies away. These are just a few of the things that have come out. So I don't know if we want to jump into those, see which ones. Eunice, may I begin with you? I mean, these issues I'm speaking about, and that's not new to you, and it's not new to any of us, but what are we addressing as a matter of urgency that can reassure investors that we are working on this, and this is something that is on not our to-do list, on our doing list?
Look, I think, firstly, I think we must understand that when a company invests, it looks at a basket of issues. And investors look at a long-term horizon. So when you mention these factors, they are not dissimilar to many countries that investors have to face, but they take a long-term horizon. And in South Africa's case, we're fortunate that we have a lion's share on the African continent of multinationals that have placed, that have resided in South Africa. So some of the issues are structural in terms of our economy, and that is, I think, a number of these issues are part of the plan in terms of the economic and recovery plan, reconstruction and recovery plan, but particularly the ones where you're looking at regulatory areas. These are now being channeled in terms of the work streams in Operation Vulindlela. For example, the network industries and infrastructure in the network industries. Next week, you'll see the symposium on the sustainable investment development projects. And they by and large, they're infrastructure relating projects from social to water, to energy and so forth. So what you see is that we're not out of the woods in terms of Eskom. We just went through the winter period, but there's a sign that it is improving. And I think that as part of the economic reconstruction and recovery plan, the push by the president himself in terms of making the announcements on South Africa's energy gives a significant vote of confidence for investors in the long term. The round 5, as well as allowing private sector embedded generation up to 100 megawatts, that's music to investors' ears. That they can come and set up and move with speed and do that. We're working in the cabinet process in terms of the district development model on municipalities itself, because it is a significant problem. It's not only new infrastructure, a lot of it has to do with maintenance, significant maintenance. And you're seeing even many areas without water, without energy, and it's not the ESCOM problem. It's because of the municipal maintenance issues and so forth. So it's a deal. So what we're doing is, on the industry commercial side, we're intervening in terms of the district development model with all organs of state, including state entities, and we have a critical infrastructure fund together with the municipal infrastructure grant, and we're putting in critical infrastructure where investors or companies have issues, be it bulk infrastructure or infrastructure that we have to repurpose and rehabilitate so that there is continuity and there's growth, so that people are not, for example, in many areas also here in Gauteng, there were companies in May, June, 5 days without electricity. You can't have a production plant without 5 days of electricity. Can't happen. So, but it was very simple things that needed to be done. Transformer got blown, or transmission grid, or even the major thing that happens is stealing of cables. So how do you have a plan to go and know which areas, and this public-private initiative that we're working on gives us a better sense of the nerve center, of where it's happening, what are the issues, how can you intervene, who do you talk to, and how do you get things done. And I think the thing for us is that what COVID has taught us is also that in our work on investment promotion, the aftercare part is the greatest part that you can have. The service being in this period, like you're saying, if you went to a hospital and you didn't have that service, you didn't have anybody to talk to. Investors looking to somebody to talk to in the country, they don't know who to talk to because regulations are being changed. The lockdown goes from 5 to 4 to 3, things change, right? So what we did is we strengthened that advocacy and aftercare program with investors so that we were daily calling them, what is your issue? How is it affecting your supply chain? How can we then work? And in that process also, you would know that His Excellency spoke about the vaccine imports into the country. But when COVID hit us, we didn't even have the capacity to produce a single ventilator. But working with the private sector, knowing who they are, we got automotive companies to work with the CSIR, come up with a prototype, and in 6 months we produced 20,000 ventilators, locally produced in South Africa. So I think it's that kind of approach that when I go back to the basics, know your customer, talk to your customer. It's like when you get, I know Clayson, Vodacom, MTN, I'm not talking about Kaiser Chiefs, I support them by the way, but if you know your customer, and if you're in your customer's eye, he's going to come back to you because you're giving him that service. So in this case, it also is with the investment. You constantly speak to the investor. Find out there were port issues during COVID, port issues now during the cyber attack. How do you get it? I mean, we were called by BMW to say, look, shipments are stuck in the port of Durban, port of Cape Town. Sorted that out for them, because the X3 couldn't be downtime. Next week was the call, we have stuff coming from Maputo cross-border. If we don't get it now on Friday night, there's no production on Saturday, Sunday, Monday, we lose to, and then we have to report to Munich. So it's that ability that you have to unblock and fast track, and going back to the simple issue of reducing the red tape, getting the things done, phoning people at SARS saying, can you sort out BMW while you're at the border post now?
Yeah.
Before I go off, before you go off, let's get it done.
Do it now. Yeah. It can be done.
It can be done.
But you've got to have your cell phone number to make it happen.
Not only have the cell phone, you've got to pick up the phone.
Yeah,
right?
To who? A call center is not going to happen.
Yeah, the call center is not going to help you.
This is the thing.
So it's that personal relationship.
But we need to make
knowing
it
your
easier.
client and providing that kind. That's what I said. What we did is, we the last 18, 24 months, we didn't travel abroad, but we traveled the length and breadth of countries talking to investors that are currently in the country. So those that were stuck, remember, we're also doing the President's Investment Mobilization Drive. 152 projects, 773 billion. Our job is to get those projects moving.
Yeah, okay.
Right, to implementation stage. So what are the issues? There were logistical issues, supply chain issues, work permits because people can't travel because of visas. How do you intervene? We did that in level 4.
Yeah.
We went to the NCC, we said to the Natch joints, we need that flight from Lufthansa to land in South Africa on this date with so many experts that will get the C-class going, and the C-class was launched now in June.
Well, there you go. So these are positive stories coming up. Clayson, I know you're dying to add to this.
Yeah, no, I just wanted a quick one to say that in many instances, I find that we're not doing what Simon said we should do, to talk up our country.
Yeah.
I'll give you 2 quick examples of incidents that happened in this room today that demonstrate that we've got this tendency, and I don't know whether it's to buy into fake news. In fact, if it's fake, it's not news. There was a high-profile business leader that said where I'm sitting and repeated the narrative that 500 billion rand has been stolen in this country in the last couple of months.
Yes.
You know, I know it's not true.
Yeah, yeah.
But if you have somebody that influential who goes around addressing forums and repeating that narrative, what does it do to the brand and the perception that this is a corrupt country? Secondly, there was another one who chairs a tourism council of sorts, who said when you go online and you search whether you need a unabridged
Yes, I heard that.
certificate
I heard
to
that.
travel to South Africa, the first information that comes out is that you still do. I Googled while sitting there, and I challenge you to Google and say, do you need an unabridged birth certificate to travel to South Africa? The first information that comes out is that you don't. Now, these are just 2 examples of what we do to ourselves
heard right here
and
on
fuel
this
this
platform.
perception about a country that's not working, where corruption is rife. Now, you tell me, Leanne, my concluding remark on this. Which country in the world has set up a commission like the Zondo Commission, where even a head of state sits there and accounts for what has happened, what has gone wrong, and talks about what government is doing to ensure there is no repeat of such? President is on record as saying he's been confronted by other heads of state who have said to him, why would you agree and subject yourself to this? You're a president. You know of a president of a very powerful nation that could hire his daughter and son-in-law and put them in the office where he operates. If it happened somewhere on the African continent, it would be called nepotism. So the point I'm making is that South Africa continues to inspire new ways in many ways. We just need to talk more about such things and be proud of ourselves and believe in our country.
I love it. I love it, Clayson, because sometimes we are, actually more times than not, we are our worst enemies. We have to ask the hard questions. I mean, that's our job, is to interrogate ourselves, but at the same time, we also need to talk ourselves up. And thank you. I love that. I really, really do, because I also sat here listening to a couple of things and thinking, but that doesn't sound right. Quickly have a look, and one search, and you see it's not right. So why do we constantly do this? We got to wrap up. I've been told we've got 4 minutes. So I've been lost in this conversation, which I think is really lovely that we've had you guys to wrap it up for us and to actually just round this for us. So DDG, let me give you a final word from your perspective. That you'd like to leave with us, that, you know, that'll be that lasting memory in us.
Okay. I would like to say that I think all of us, we need to recognize the fact that we have a very good country, despite the fact that there are challenges, but also that it becomes very much important for all of us as citizens of this country to work together, not to pass the buck, to ensure that wherever we are, we take full responsibility. For instance, we're talking about crime. As you were talking about crime, I was just asking myself, you know, at what point are we going to say as South African citizens that if you know that your neighbor is a criminal, you are able to work with the law enforcement agencies? We know that it comes with its own challenges, but if we are all serious about ensuring that we have a crime-free country, of course, ideally, that's what we would want to have, but we also have to do something, not just to look only at you know, law enforcement agencies without us being also agents of that kind of change that we would want to see.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And that goes for corruption too. Any form
exactly,
of corruption.
Exactly.
If you are an enabler of it,
Yeah.
you are just as guilty as anybody that is above you and you're criticizing. And that's what always gets me, is that people are so bad to, you know, they're so quick to talk about it, but then, yeah, I paid this guy off and that was fine. But then they sit around a dinner table and they criticize leaders, whereas you're doing the same thing. And that's, we've got to live by that notion. Eunice, closing word for you very quickly.
I think that as the colleagues and in the session today, we have a great country, we have a great opportunity. We have an opportunity. There's a number of green shoots in the economy, such as, for example, what Leanne said earlier on in the first session, the green hydrogen space. We have a significant opportunity for South Africa to become a real global player in the green hydrogen space, in putting the infrastructure, in looking at areas of beneficiation in the green hydrogen space, in the component space, in the storage space, and in export. That's a total new sector for us. A great opportunity. There's a great opportunity in the tech space. What Puti mentioned in terms of startups, youth. You need to see the youth developing the new Ubers in Africa for Africa. Those kind of technologies. And it happens when you give the youth these kind of opportunities to become entrepreneurs. And that's the kind of enabling environment that we need to provide together with the skills opportunity for youth to flourish, for SMEs to flourish in these kind of spaces. So like that, there are a few great sectors. The just transition of South Africa is a significant opportunity for investment, a major opportunity for us. We in South Africa, we're blessed with the sun. The sun is one commodity people don't have in many countries. We're blessed, so we should become what our new trajectory should be. How does South Africa industrialize in terms of becoming a low carbon manufacturing value proposition?
All right, all right.
And building that services. So I think we
have
a good story to tell. We need to build an inclusive economy that everybody is part and shares and part and parcel of the economy, and need to provide opportunities where there's significant skills development, skills upskilling, and creating new skills to attract like these particular sectors that I spoke about. And it would become a significant opportunity for us while we look at the other areas of investment climate reform, and make it a better place for South Africa to become indeed an attractive location for investment.
Right, Eunice, thanks very much. And then finally, Clayson, just very quickly, if you could give us closing remarks.
I think we have an opportunity to rebuild following the couple of months and 2 years almost that we've gone through as a country. And I think we're on the right trajectory. We just need to continue to pull together. There are many things that unite us than what divides us.
Yeah, so true. We're reflecting, we're rebuilding, and we're reassuring South Africans that you're not alone in this and that we are hearing. I'm glad to hear that every one of you have listened and you've heard what's been said here today. And thank you for being with us to just wrap up what we've heard during this fascinating discussion from this morning up until today. So thanks again from me and my panelists. Let's hand over to Nzinga to close us up.